Welcome back to Law and Crime. Well, jurors have now been deliberating about 6.5 hours as they try to determine whether Jonchuck is guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity of throwing his little 5-year-old daughter Phoebe over a bridge in Tampa 2 years ago. Jonchuck's defense attorney going through some of her witnesses, the defense witnesses, who all testified that Jonchuck was insane at the moment he threw his daughter off the bridge. Joining us now is Judge Birmingham. He is with us live via Skype from Texas and joins Roger Foley, who's still with us from Jupiter, Florida. So, Judge, thanks for being with us and joining the discussion this afternoon. Roger and I were just talking about this, that we know this trial is a bit of the war of the experts. There were 2 prosecution witnesses, one witness who was a little bit controversial herself, but who said this was malingering. He faked his symptoms. The other prosecution witness said, yeah, there's no question this guy had mental problems, but he wasn't insane at the time he killed his daughter. Whereas the defense's 3 witnesses all say he was insane. How does the jury sort of reconcile this? You've got 3 saying he was insane, 1 saying he was making this up, the other one saying, yeah, he's got problems, but it's not what killed him, what caused him to kill his daughter.
The jurors are going to be processing this information against the backdrop of all the facts that they've heard leading up to it, without the experts. In other words, did he make any statements to the police that were inconsistent? I think there was some evidence that he tried to avoid being apprehended, or some flight evidence, things like that. So everything the experts are going to say is going to be tested against the jurors' own recollection of what the facts are on the date of the offense and at the time of the offense. There's probably no dispute that he does have a mental disease or defect. I don't think that's really been disputed. There's a long history of that. So the question is, at the instant in time that he committed this murder, did he know right from wrong? And the jurors are going to be looking at all of those facts and circumstances immediately surrounding the killing in order to make that determination.
Well, Roger, I know you have said, look, we were talking about the exorcism, the fact that he went to all these churches, really what can only be described as an insane chain of events happened leading up to the killing. But the defense, the prosecutors rather say, okay, well, if that's true, and he was saying he believed, because apparently he had said he believed both he and Phoebe had to die, then why is he still alive? Why didn't he kill himself? Both of you, thank you so much for the input. Stick around. To our viewers, stick around. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Breaking news. Our friends at the Tampa Bay Times reporting that jurors have reached a verdict in the Jonchuck case. Let's show you a live picture of the courtroom right now. Jonchuck is in court. It is filling up. The attorneys are in there. We are waiting for the jury to come in. This comes about 6.5 hours into deliberations. Let's bring my experts in. Roger Foley, criminal defense attorney, Judge Birmingham. Your predictions on this 6.5 hours of deliberations. What do you think they decided? Judge Birmingham?
I'll take the counterpoint on that one. We'll see how far the malingering went. There was also the motive about domestic violence and a controlling type relationship that he had, so perhaps that will carry the day for the prosecution in this case.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, they had tried to argue that he killed the girl to get back at his own mother, as well as the mother, Phoebe's mother. We will see. And by the way, we have confirmed that this is a verdict, so we are just standing by now for the audio and also for the jury to come in. 6.5 hours. Obviously, they had something to debate over that time, and a lot of experts say, you know what, you can't read into the amount of time that jurors deliberated. But what can we make of this? I mean, look, they got the case yesterday at 4:30. The judge had told them they could go home whenever they wanted, but they called it themselves at 6. Clearly, they had some stuff to discuss and work out. Judge?
Yeah, I always thought that it's really hard to say, you know, a quick verdict means guilty or not guilty or whatever. Jurors, and especially in a case like this, you're talking about the horrific killing of a 5-year-old little girl. They want to be right. They want to sleep with a clear conscience. They went home. They had a good night's sleep. I'm hopeful, probably a very thoughtful night. They really were investigating their own heart and their own souls to decide what they wanted to do on this case. And so here we are, 6.5 hours into a very important trial. Not terribly unusual given all of the complications that are going to arise from all the expert witnesses that they heard.
So we, again, are just waiting to hear for the jury to come in and to read the verdict. But as you can see, court has filled up. The judge is in there, as well as the attorneys and Jonchuck himself. As I was just saying, the judge, after the jury left to begin deliberating yesterday, said this is one of the most interesting trials I've ever had, probably ever will. You know, Tampa's not some little town in the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's not Dallas, but Judge, what do you think about the judge being, you know, mesmerized by this case?
Well, you know, breaking news, I guess, judges are humans too, and you know, you sit up there and you listen to it, and you get a very unique perspective from being up on the bench like that, looking at all of the witnesses and all of the evidence, knowing the outcome. It is, at most times, a very fascinating job to see the way that these lawyers put these cases together. And I don't disagree with her at all. This is a rare case. It's one of those that you realize as you're listening to it that you're going to remember for the rest of your career. And I'm sure that she will, as well, these lawyers as well.
I mean, absolutely. And as Josh Solomon told us earlier, I mean, the entire Tampa region is waiting for closure in this. It's a case that's touched so many. I mean, anytime you have a case involving fatal child abuse, the death of a child, you know, this girl, absolutely adorable, 5-year-old Phoebe, but also the questions of what could have been done to prevent this. Jonchuck had encounters with a number of people in the hours and the days leading up to him throwing her off of the bridge. Could something have been done? Were people's hands tied? I mean, there are so many questions and I think frustrations about this, and that is part of the reason there is so much intrigue. Again, the jurors deliberated 6.5 hours. They began at 4:30 yesterday. They opted to go home about 6, then came back this morning, and it was just about 1:40 we got word that a verdict had been reached. There you see Judge Chris Hellinger. Jonchuck walking out of court, you saw him hug his attorneys. He is now being put into handcuffs as the officers lead him out of the courtroom. Again, the jury finding him guilty of first-degree murder in the 2015 death of his daughter, Phoebe. Jurors obviously did not buy the defense's argument that he was insane and that is what drove him to do this. We just heard the defense attorney asking for a postponement of the sentencing, the judge denying that. Well, let's get reaction to the verdict right now. Obviously, Roger, you and I, in chatting, we said, you know what, we were going with insane. The jury didn't think so. Judge Birmingham, you did predict perhaps that the jury would find him guilty of murder. Judge, they agreed with you.
Yeah, it seems to me that the most important things that the jurors are going to consider in cases like that is they're going to view the expert testimony through the lens of the facts that they heard surrounding the killing. And anytime you have motive or premeditation and planning or escape, then that will defeat insanity in the eyes of the jury. Those are the things that the prosecution highlighted in this case, and that ultimately carried the day for them.
There you have it, guilty of first-degree murder. Their choices for sentencing, what was on the table was guilty of first-degree murder or second-degree murder or manslaughter, or not guilty reason of insanity, which of course is what the defense had wanted. Judge, were you surprised at that almost rapid sentencing right then and there? You know, the defense attorney got up with Jonchuck and said, we asked for a postponement of the sentencing so we can file some motions, and she said no and just said, you're sentenced to life in prison. I mean, is that something that you've seen in your courtrooms ever?
Well, there is a different state of the law in different states. I mean, she used the word automatic, and I'm not sure if this is one of those types of killings. In Texas, this would be a capital murder by reason of the intentional killing of somebody less than 10. And so there is no sentencing hearing. If you're found guilty of that intentional killing with that class of persons, the sentence is, I've received your verdict, and this is the sentence. It's life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Right.
So I'm not quite familiar with exactly how Florida works, but it sounds to me like that's what the judge was doing. And she also asked, she gave them an out, said, give me a specific reason why I need to have a hearing, and there was none given.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct that this is the automatic sentence in this case. Life without parole. Still, it did seem to wrap up a bit abruptly. I mean, have you had cases, Judge, where there is a mandatory preset sentence and that's it? It ends right then and there?
Yes, capital murder in Texas is like that. That is the only one off the top of my head where there is a if you are convicted, this is your sentence type if-then sentencing, and it happens just like that. In Texas, we give a lot of powers to juries, and other than that, the juries will assess punishment within a range. So if this was in Texas, we would go right into the punishment phase of the trial if the state was seeking the death penalty, but since they weren't, this would be an automatic sentence. That's it.
Were you guys able to see Jonchuck's face, able to read anything sort of into his emotions or reactions? I mean, he hugged his attorney. You know, he did not cry or, you know, put his head down or his head in his hands or anything. I mean, he just sort of acknowledged it and followed instructions. Can we read anything into that?
I've seen a number of verdicts handed down. I've only ever really seen reaction once or twice. So, you know, perhaps he knew what was coming, or maybe he doesn't fully understand what is coming. And, you know, I kind of sensed that a little bit on his face. I'm not sure.
Judge, thank you as always so much for being with us here this afternoon. I know you have to leave us, but we appreciate your insight on this case as well as the Jonchuck verdict, which we did just get in a little while ago. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, much more on the day's top legal stories.